This episode of the Good Ship Brothership is brought to you by Spampus. Un gata por español? Spampus. Go to www.spampusmcmanus.ca today to get 2% off your Spampus subscription. Spampus. It's just Spampus. It's too late.
No.
Here we are.
We can't. We have to have it.
Well, we can get it.
Okay.
Jeez, holy Moses.
Welcome to the Good Ship Brothership, everybody.
Hey.
Did you get up the document?
Oh no, I guess I should get that up. I was hoping that some sort of like natural banter would kick in, but it was
Well, I was reading something, and then you're just like, well, we're starting.
And it's just dead space. Okay,
we're still new at this.
Yeah, we're not doing so hot today thus far. Okay, the margins in all my documents have gone all squirrely on me. Like, look at that. There we go.
Nice.
See what I'm saying?
Wrong one. Wrong one.
I know. I'm gonna close these because I don't want to crash. Whoa. Yeah, I'd like to save those changes. Should we just go straight into it? It feels like we have nothing to say.
Well, we can banter. Like, I mean, we can talk.
There's
about,
no banter.
Well,
I'm only going through the motions with you at this point.
okay.
What?
He's actually just walking to the closet to get. He has to go get the theme music.
Yeah.
Okay, he has it now. So actually, this evening, Grant said it's really sad that we don't have chocolate cake, which is true. And so now we're recording later than we had planned. Stop making noise.
Sorry.
Just because I went out of my way to bake chocolate peanut butter pecan topped brownies.
It was not really out of.
And they're well, yes, it was because I wasn't planning on making.
It
them.
was in the house.
Yeah,
But it's not like you're like, I drove all the way down to.
But it was like 45 minutes of my time.
Oh, wow.
So maybe you could show a little
Why
gratitude.
didn't you just drive somewhere and get them then?
Because it's 8:30 on a Sunday.
Oh, you absolute lizard.
And we're also having coffee instead of tea.
That was a good reaction.
Yeah.
This is probably ready, by the way. Let's pour this crud.
Pour that hack, man.
Trophy! I'm super high energy just because
Really?
I'm really excited to record today. I don't think it was the last time, maybe it was the time before that when I was like not really feeling it when we started out, and then obviously my energy picked up. There's your coffee.
Thank
Here's
you.
my coffee in a man's chalice. But today I'm super high energy and I'm really ready to present my best face forward.
We're gonna cut the brownies, and that's not a euphemism.
Are we ready for the ceremonial cutting of the brownie music?
Yep.
Begin!
These are so perfect. Like, they're nice and dense.
Ready?
They didn't crack too much. Actually, I do have a note to make.
I absolutely love this song.
So I watched this tech podcast called The Wand Show.
Man, is it ever loud though.
Shout out to The Wand Show.
Putting this down here.
That Linus Tech Tips does. But they play their theme music and they talk over it just like we do.
Well, clearly they've been listening to.
And
this
I've
show.
never, but it was like from before.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I doubt that.
And it kind of bothered me because I was like, wow, I've never heard anywhere where they do this. But yeah, they play their theme music and they talk over it just like this. Except they have like a highly edited theme because they're really famous. And
Now, our theme is pretty fancy.
you're aboard the Good Ship Brothership, the only arts podcast that covers film, music, gaming, literature, and
Chest
food.
tattoos.
I'm
Big
Jason.
chest tattoos.
And this is my brother.
Chest tattoo.
What are we talking about today, Tattoo?
The plane.
We are talking about the plane.
One day
And
we
the
should review
plane.
Fantasy Island.
Oh, no. Today, we'll be talking about the video game Hotline Miami 1, or just Hotline Miami, and Drive by Nicolas Winding Refn, starring Ryan Gosling, the
Carey
incandescent Carey Mulligan,
She alright.
and Oscar Isaac as well a little bit.
It's not really starring him.
And a little bit of Bryan Cranston, and a little bit of the guy who played Hellboy, whose name I can't remember right now. What's his name? I remember his name sounds like what his face looks like.
Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Ron Perlman. Sounds like kind of a...
These brownies are almighty. Like, try it, please.
Ron Perlman's name could be Brutus, though.
Try it.
Yeah.
Hellboy? The first one's a good movie. I don't think I would ever review it, but...
Well, it's a super fun
I guess.
blockbuster movie.
Hellboy 2 is okay.
Made with like some character for once.
Or did they make a Hellboy 3?
What was the second one? Is that Golden Army?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you
Let's
looking
see.
this up?
Yeah. Why don't you get the puppet?
Golden Army was the last one. I remember that.
February 21st, 2017, via Polygon.
2017?
Hellboy 3 is officially dead.
Oh.
Hellboy 3, the follow-up to Guillermo del Toro's 2008 Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, is officially off the docket. The director confirmed today.
Well, it's not... no, Ron
Rip.
Perlman didn't want to get bulked up and do another Hellboy movie in all that makeup. Which I can't
Didn't
blame
he
him
have
for.
like 20 pounds of makeup or something preposterous?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And you can see in the first movie, he's like shredded. And then the second movie, he's
still big, but he's not like...
he's much more lithe. He
Yeah.
looks like he just didn't care as much.
Well, it wouldn't be easy.
Non.
Non.
Non. I keep saying non, but there I want to say no, and then I want to say non.
We do have a Spanish sponsorship today.
Yes. Spleepus or whatever it was.
Grant could barely hold it together for that. He was like, I don't know if I can do this.
What was it? I can't even
I don't remember.
Wow.
We'll
that
have
was
to-
so
we'll listen to it
That was
later.
so pure in the moment. Okay, so Hotline Miami and Drive. And one of the reasons why we decided to review this pairing is because Hotline Miami is directly influenced by Drive, stylistically speaking.
Among other things.
And yeah, and of course other things.
Miami Vice or whatever.
No, Cocaine Cowboys. It was a documentary. That being said, we're going to try and avoid spoilers for both. I know that...
I thought we were going to do a full discussion of Hotline Miami.
a full discussion of Hotline Miami. Yeah.
Spoiler City, man.
Spoiler... Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. We're going to try our level best to avoid spoilers for Drive.
So maybe we should do Drive first.
Hold on. But that being said, if what we describe early on in the discussion review, if what we describe early on interests you, I would recommend pausing it, going watching it. It is on Netflix, Canadian Netflix at least, and it is recommendable. It's a movie that I think we both agree that anybody who likes this show should probably go watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think we should just not even flip the puppet, or flip it as a formality, but then be like, oh, look.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to flip the puppet, but regardless of the outcome, we're
Yeah.
doing Drive. So Drive's going to be puppet up, okay?
Yeah. The puppet has landed.
Whoa, it actually did land up.
We're doing-
But you'll never know. So.
We're doing Drive.
Okay. So, brought to you by en.wikipedia.org.
Oh, man, you got that up. I've got the other one.
Drive is a 2011 American neo-noir crime film. Kind of disagree.
You don't have to speak this loud.
I like to project when I talk.
It's not projecting, it's just loud.
Okay. Directed by Nicolas Winding Refn and written by Hussein Amini, based on the 2005 novel by James Salas. The film is about an unnamed Hollywood stunt driver who moonlights as a getaway driver. He becomes attracted to a female neighbor whose husband owes money to local gangsters. We'll probably stop there so that we don't spoil it. Basically, yeah. David Bowie.
This is such a good cover. Please
I,
continue.
but his eyes are two different colors there, but they weren't in real life.
Well, I don't know. I think
One
that
of his pupils was just dilated.
I think
right?
one of them's a little darker than the other.
but that looks too much.
Those are definitely two different
looks
colors.
fake.
I don't know. I
buy
don't
it.
know.
I don't buy it.
You completely digressed just by me clicking through the open tabs trying to get to...
David Bowie
The
is very
essentials.
distracting.
Okay, I can close that one.
Okay,
Please continue.
so what did you think of Drive? I'm kicking it over to you.
You're asking...
Yeah,
So am I doing my review now?
yeah.
Because I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do a quick review of my brownies first.
The brownies are. Let me just
flake it into the mic.
Okay, I'm getting a mouthful here. No. Now, due to the high volume of peanut butter, only a little dry. Only a little dry.
There's not much peanut butter in there.
Good peanut butter taste. Good nut to brownie ratio. Would be unmatched with vanilla ice cream.
Yes. 10 out of 10
With-
IGN.
With the coffee, also excellent.
Yeah.
Of course, hot brownie, hot coffee.
It makes you thirsty.
It's probably going to make me projectile poo onto this chair halfway through the episode. No warning whatsoever. It's going to be like soft serve coming out of a cannon.
Do we need to pull up the Bristol stool chart yet? No.
Yes.
No. 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 Do your review.
Okay. So Drive is a highly stylish but beautifully underplayed, and we seem to be gravitating a lot toward underplayed movies like Locke, which is set completely in a car with one live actor who you see. But Drive is not on that level. It's not quite that
It's a bit
low-key.
subdued, though.
But it's definitely subdued. It doesn't go in for massive action set pieces or really massive set pieces of any sort. And it's just occurred to me, and this is the last non sequitur I'm going to do before I finish my review, I promise, that I don't know where my ring is. And I took it off before we went on the walk, and I've completely forgot where it is. So anyway, that's going to bother me. I'm going to write it on my hand.
Let's stay. Not that we have to stay on track too much.
Well,
but let's kind of try and stay within the realm of
I'm trying,
something
but
that's
I'm trying.
relevant
I'm
or
trying.
interesting.
But it just occurred to me, and I don't want to forget
Okay.
because I like that ring a lot. Okay. So, oh jeez. So Drive, very stylish. I would definitely categorize it as a neo-noir style thriller. There is a kind of fatalist slant to everything. Very interesting fact that the protagonist is never named. And
Yes.
speaking of the protagonist, I think this is kind of like the dream role for Ryan Gosling in like a serious setting, because generally I find, and now in case any of you are about to shoot flaming arrows at me, I have not
You
yet
so often
seen
do.
I've not yet seen La La Land. So
Fake. You're
Completely redacted.
he might be great in La La Land. Can we not make
Lizard.
jokes on the show ever?
sorry. Should we should almost redact?
Yeah, let's redact it.
We'll write down the time code then. While you keep talking.
You write it down. So, I generally do consider Ryan Reynolds to be one of those actors who does get cast because he gets a lot of female audience members into the cinema.
He's the Angelina Jolie, but for men.
Well, he's one of them. I mean, there are a lot of attractive dudes in movies now. But he is very well suited to this extremely understated role, and I was very impressed by the amount of nuance and subtlety that he brought to it. And it was almost like I say a lot, Tom Hardy is the best physical actor in Hollywood today for telling a story with his face, with his eyes, with his hands, with the way he walks or carries himself. What is it?
I do think it's really interesting. I just wanted to throw this out to add to the conversation. What it reminded me a lot of is so often in games we have silent protagonists for us to project onto and to be sort of a blank slate and like a conduit through which the narrative is viewed. Obviously, he's not a silent protagonist. He does talk. He does have his own character. But I thought it was an interesting film equivalent to that. And I think at times you can kind of project yourself onto him.
Yeah, I think that his character is it's decently well established in the little things he does, though. That's what tells a story of him, and that's how we know who he is by the small things. The toothpick that he always has in his mouth, and just the small little movements and motions. And that's why I say physical Tom Hardy-esque performance, and Tom Hardy is my man. The cinematography, as I think a lot of people who are even vaguely familiar with Nicolas Winding Refn, and this is definitely his biggest movie, would expect his movies to look gorgeous and captivating and striking, and this definitely does. I do feel like in some cases, at some moments in this movie, I did find myself more interested in like the framing, the coloration, and the cinematography than I did in the characters. Mm-hmm. But I think that's just because the cinematography is so rich that it can... I did find myself going, wow, doesn't that look great? When, if you're watching a movie that you're fully absorbed into, I feel like you don't notice how good the cinematography is until, you know, you go back and you watch it for the cinematography. So that would be, now that I think about it, maybe one small criticism that I'd level at it, perhaps. One major props to give it, though, is the central relationship between Ryan Reynolds and Carey Mulligan's characters. I think that it's not even close to a spoiler to say that it's a romance. I think the romance is believable, not obnoxious, and it's not overplayed, and it doesn't feel melodramatic in any way.
That's fair.
I was very struck by that returning to this. I watched this movie maybe 2 years ago for the first time, and jumping off on that, the fact that I saw it like 2 years ago, I was amazed by how vividly a lot of parts of this movie had stuck with me, particularly the scene. I think there's one or two scenes of Ryan Gosling sitting inside his apartment, which is this empty, like borderline abandoned looking room. Like it's a one room. That's all you ever see. And I think that the reason why that stuck with me so much is that it's just such a good mirroring of his character.
Just the essentials.
Mysterious, weird, stripped down, yet charming individual who's kind of... It almost feels as though the other characters are intruding into his life, and that's kind of the tale that we're seeing.
Yeah, sure.
Oscar Isaac, in his, somewhat limited role, and I don't mean limited in terms of like what he gets to do, but
in his infinite glory and talent.
But in his smaller, slightly more side role is like as good as pathetically good, as insultingly good as you'd expect Oscar Isaac to be. He makes you feel threatened, reassured, scared, angry.
He's the deepest character, I would say, in the
for
movie.
sure, and the best portrayed.
And I should say, dear listeners, or should I say listener? Hey Ben.
I bet Emerson's out there.
Yeah, well, there are a couple people. I mean, Tom York, Johnny Greenwood.
Thank you.
Hello again, the King of Kuwait.
Was it Kuwait?
Yeah.
I don't think that it was.
Qatar? No, Kuwait. It was Kuwait.
I'm sorry, Your Majesty.
Yeah, we really like those new Lamborghinis.
Forgive us.
I think Oscar Isaac is my favorite actor in Hollywood. I don't know that he's necessarily the best, but I think he's just consistently fantastic.
He really is. He's chosen his roles really well, and I feel like Mark Kermode, film critic with the BBC and other publications, likened Viggo Mortensen to... Who is the guy in Taxi Driver?
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro. He likened Viggo Mortensen to Robert De Niro, but I would say Oscar Isaac's more of an analog to De Niro.
Let's hope his career doesn't burn out as much.
Yeah. Anyway, there is a slow build to kind of like a different layer. How far can I go without going to also
third
that undershirt's inside out. There is at one point kind of a pivot in the story that I think is kind of genius in how the movie it's full of intensity and brooding, not threat, but it's tense.
Yeah.
The movie's tense, but still the release of that tension is not something, even on the second watch, that I saw coming. And it completely took me by surprise and shocked me. And then from there on, the movie becomes much more unpredictable and continues to be very noir-like.
Yeah.
Especially in a scene on a moonlit beach after a short car chase. Reminds me so much of a lot of great noir film. I'm just skimming over my notes here. Oh, another important one is thank God for movies that aren't overly long. Oh,
It's about
this one's like an
80
hour and a
minutes.
half.
Yeah.
Oh my word! Why can't more movies be that? It's like with books or albums or anything. I feel like once you get into making them, you feel like in the page count or the track list or the hours that have to be invested, you will craft this great epic where people who really know what they're doing know that if you strip it down to just what you need, like what I've got this paper hanging on the inside of my closet door that just says
What does it say?
It says subtractive sculpture, and that's a sculpture term referring to taking away everything that doesn't belong in the sculpture, and that's what this movie feels like. It feels like a raw, stripped down, emotionally variable and quite rich film that does tell an interesting and a fascinating story, and it is a neo-noir classic, I would say, in every sense of the word. There's really not a whole lot that I can say, and I'll just leave my review with saying that the final scene, or one of the final scenes, is one of the greatest final scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where a game that Ryan Gosling has been playing with Carey Mulligan's son for the entire movie is thrown back on you, the viewer, and you unwittingly participate in this little game with Ryan Gosling's character. And it is genius and an emotional move, I think, that really plays off.
Is that it?
Yep.
Buckle up. I think my impressions are quite different than you think they'll be. So I think this is a really interesting movie, and I think that alone makes it worth viewing, because I think there are very few like truly interesting movies that you shouldn't watch for one reason or another, because I think they're quite rare. The cinematography is beautiful. The depth of field is like shallow and crisp, and really draws your attention to the focus of each shot. I like, I'm gonna go slightly technical, not too technical.
Go for it.
But I really like how consistent the color palette is. It's desaturated a little bit from, realism, and yet it's warmer. I would say you measure it in degrees Kelvin, and I would say it's 6,000 degrees Kelvin, which is around the difference between a sunny day and a cloudy day, like a very heavily overcast day. And so it's like warm and yellowy but desaturated, and it works for this noir. It's almost comparable to black and white, just because I feel like there was less variation in the color scheme than there often is in a movie.
Yeah.
And so I think that made it, not that it was like black and white, but it had more of that sort of feel. Yeah.
Are there any scenes that particularly stood out to you and made you think like, wow, the cinematography is really cool?
I mean, you can tell.
Like just in particular, because I've got one that
the one we talked about with the, what was it called? I'd actually never heard it before. The rule of fourths or something?
The quad something. We should say before we jump into this, there is a YouTube channel called Every Frame a Painting.
So good.
And it's great. It's like 3, 4, 5 minute dissections of the visual styles of different films and directors. And he did one on Drive that we're going to talk about a little bit now. And it really made me appreciate, and I think you as well, the artistic integrity behind the composition of the shots in Drive.
Yeah, basically, what happens is, imagine a crosshair, if you will, over a screen. So one vertical, one horizontal in the middle. the idea is to have 2 or 4 stories being told. So for instance, in certain shots, if you blocked off the top half of your screen and looked only at the bottom half, there's a narrative being played out. So say someone crouching talking to a kid. And then if you were to look at only the top half without the bottom half, it could be some adults who are concerned or something like that. And basically what it does is it gives you 2 different points of intrigue, or even 4 points of intrigue when they use
that sometimes
all 4 corners.
conflict and contrast or work with each other.
And subtly draw your eyes around, and it's really gorgeous and really genius, and shows a sort of passion and intentional creation of art, which I think is very important. And I think that's one of the things that makes this movie so special, but it's so difficult to describe, you know? I think oftentimes there are elements like that that go beyond what we notice, and you're like, this movie's great, but I just can't think of why. And I think it's things like this that make it really memorable.
I definitely don't say this about many movies. I know a lot of people say this about their favorite movies and whatnot, and I wouldn't even say this about a lot of movies that I really like, but it is a movie that almost demands to be watched twice.
And I think
in order to like fully appreciate everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a hallmark even of a great film, but it's something about this one that it's almost less distracting the second time around.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the plot is very well done. It avoids being, high-minded or really complicated, but it's full of twists and tensions. There are answers and questions being given to you at just the right speed to keep you intrigued without bogging you down. I didn't actually love the ending. I'm not going to get spoilery. There was the cool callback that you talked about.
What did you think of that, though? That thing.
It was very interesting. I don't think I ascribed quite the importance to it that you did.
It almost makes me cry.
But at the same time, I think it was a very interesting visual play, and it was very well done.
Because it's one of those, that scene in the car with the game with the kid, it treats I think that one of the reasons I love it so much is it treats the viewer with such intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even hint at what happens or what it doesn't even begin to tell you what to do.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's so intelligent that it lures you in, it pulls you in, it draws you in, and it makes you so connected, so invested in that moment.
For sure.
But it treats you with such intelligence and such grace.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Man, we're just going long again. That's okay.
It's the perfect length, Jason.
I thought... Okay, whatever.
Also, if I may add, this is a bit on my note that I skipped over during my review, and it does tie in with what you were just saying. This film is subdued and underplayed.
Mm-hmm.
Make no mistake about it. However, it does the subdued, underplayed thing properly. So many... quote-unquote underplayed movies that are coming out now, they seem to try and underplay, make the movie underplayed by leeching all of the character from the characters, from the roles, the films, and just trying to remove detail. Being underplayed is not a removal of detail; it's the adding of small details, but the detachment
not forcing them on you.
Yeah, exactly. Of shoving these details in your face, saying, "Hey, look at this. This is what this means."
It's really cool.
Yeah. So I think it just treats the viewer with intelligence.
Something else that Hotline Miami does as well.
Yeah, very much so.
The soundtrack, and I think it's interesting, by the way, how we notice very different things.
Oftentimes
I was
going to mention the soundtrack.
The soundtrack is very interesting. I've never heard anything quite like it for the movie, because at the beginning of the movie, dialogue is very sparse, and the soundtrack is very thick, fills a lot of the sound, very noticeable, interesting too. And then as the dialogue takes over progressively throughout the movie, it gets kind of more and more dialogue heavy. The soundtrack recedes into the background to the point where it's still there, but it no longer holds your attention. And I think it's a really good way to keep you engaged visually and aurally, like not orally, aurally.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was well done. I don't think it was like this stunning, perfect score.
Also, one of the few uses of a song that actually has singing and lyrics in it in a movie that, like, I love.
Yeah.
And the song right now is running through my head. I don't know about you, but it's such a great companion to the film itself. But juxtaposes it too in its style. And I love that.
Now, we get on to something interesting. The movie has one massive flaw, which I think takes it down hugely for me from being, like, incredible to still very good, but, like, every time I think about the movie, there's something where I'm like... So, I think the casting is excellently done. I have no complaints really for that. I think Bryan Cranston was awesome as, like, the garage owner, sort of the mentor, like, friend. Oscar Isaacs was great. Carey Mulligan's... She could just do nothing. She would still... Okay, anyways.
I could watch her watch paint dry. And I'd just be like, my queen. I love you.
You're still better than me.
I think, let me hazard a guess at where you're going with this. You don't like Ron Perlman in this movie.
No, I think he's fine.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I like Gosling's silent protagonist thing in theory, but really I think it's kind of tough to implement in the movie, and I think it faltered fairly often. He has a couple in-depth conversations, which I just didn't really think seemed like him, despite the fact that I think he grows and develops really interestingly over the movie, which is something else I like. I feel like the character development is good, and characters are more than just, like, one-trick ponies. You know, like, Oscar Isaac's not just this, like, abusive criminal. Like, he's a very complex character. And we'll leave it at that for him. But the writing, again and again, as the movie went on, I was struck by how super unrealistic the conversation seemed. Like, I mean, TVs and movies are always a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But, like, the conversation he has in the apartment towards the beginning with Carey Mulligan, I was just like, nobody talks like this. This is, like...
Do you have any examples?
I don't have any quoted lines. I'm trying to find my notes here because I got a little carried away.
Because now you've got me curious, because I totally didn't, that never crossed my mind. And normally, being a lover of the written word, that sort of thing would leap out at me.
I thought they seemed really awkward and yet, like...
Well, he is awkward.
Yet, like, cliched,
Okay.
and sometimes weirdly emotionless. Like they didn't have their lines well rehearsed or something and were focusing on what they were saying. That said, I think the acting was really good in terms of physical acting, and I think the direction was good.
It is one of the movies in which the camera does a lot of acting as well.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
Jeez. But there are about 3 scenes, and I can't name all of them for spoilers, but we'll have to talk later, where I was just like, wow, like it really pulled me out of the experience, and I felt like the writing was like bad.
Yeah. I think my one knock against it, because when you started talking negatively, I started going, oh, what could he be thinking about? And now, and I'm sorry because this is a bit of a non sequitur, but it's just in reference to negatives in the movie. I do think that it may have spent too much time for my liking with the Ron Perlman character.
Yeah.
Who is kind of whiny and irritating. And thinking back to the movie, I don't really remember like the scenes with him very much at all.
Sure.
The characters I wanted to be with were Ryan Gosling's and Carey Mulligan's and the little boy.
Yeah. So I said here, I thought that I did become attached to the characters because of their strong performance and direction, but then I was kind of ripped away again. I put here whenever a conversation took place, not literally, but several times throughout the film I was just like, this just doesn't, like, you're not selling it to me.
It's not ringing true?
Yeah, you're not selling it.
Okay.
Also, another complaint I have is a scene in the nightclub. Like, I'm not a prude, and I think the directors should be able to feature any mature content, and the movie is rated M.
Yeah.
And it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But there's a scene of extended nudity that I feel like added nothing.
It's topless dancers or whatever who are sitting around in the green room.
Yeah. And I think, now personally, I would never put something like that in my movie. You could make arguments in some movies that it adds to the grit or it helps sell the atmosphere or something. Here, I think it was totally needless and just kind of a way to get like a couple scuzzy views.
And see, I completely disagree with that.
Really?
I think that was an important juxtaposition to what was happening in that setting.
Yeah.
And also, that's just what that environment, I would imagine, would be like, you know. And you can't...
And that's fair.
And you don't really want to... well, I was going to say, like, they were probably going for realism in that moment, too. But I do think that probably the main reason why it was in there is to provide a weird, juxtaposed backdrop where the character Ryan Gosling goes to meet is kind of the kingpin.
Yeah.
You know, and then the way it unfolds it. So I think that it was... I totally understand what you're coming from, and it definitely doesn't make me comfortable.
Yeah.
But I do think that as a,
creator,
I totally think that it's justifiable and justified.
I mean, I understand.
And it does not seem pervy or leering, like, in any sense.
No,
and
I don't
totally
think so.
could have. Like, it totally could have. It could have gone way into voyeuristic territory.
Yeah.
But hats off to Nicolas Winding Refn and the team for making it not seem like that.
I just guess, if I put it this way, if the scene did not feature, like, nudity like that, I wouldn't have finished the movie and been like, man, some nudity sure would have sold the scene a lot more. Like,
well, if the movie was made without it, you definitely wouldn't wish for it. But it's not something that you wish for.
Yeah.
Like, it
wasn't like, I'm not saying it destroyed the movie. I just saw it and I was kind of like, this seems like a kind of easy out, but not the best way to achieve a real feel for an area like this.
I disagree.
Yeah. But overall, I think it was a solid, like, really good movie that would have been great if only it had better writing.
I will say an interesting point. So we should also just quickly red flag the fact that this movie, without trotting into spoilers, gets very violent.
Yeah.
And like graphically violent, and like you said, there's the brief, single but decently extended topless scene. So if either of those are sensitive issues for you, you might want to give it a pass. I really enjoyed the movie regardless. But interesting thing that I noticed when we were watching the movie together, because we watched it together, which is I think the first time we've done that for a show, except for Embrace the Serpent. Hey,
Casablanca also.
Yeah, well, it's the third time then. I'm sorry, jeez. Every time an act of
Good Will Hunting we also watched together, by the way.
No, I don't remember that. Every time an act of violence would occur on screen, I was noticing you very soon after each time something violent happened. No, you would say something to me. Yeah.
Huh. That's very interesting.
I think you were breaking the tension or
know
something. Because I remember the first time I watched that movie, and I was by myself, and I was like completely taken aback by how brutal and unflinching the portrayal of the violence is. And I found it really interesting that you would make like a little remark, like a little
quip,
quip or whatnot after each of those scenes. And it was like without fail every time.
Interesting.
So I found that was pretty funny and quite indicative of how good the violence is. I don't want to say how good it is.
It achieved its goal.
Yeah, it really does.
Okay, we are on near the 40-minute mark.
Cooly dooly.
Heckin' dang.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine this is going to be short.
No.
Let's try and keep around an album. Yes. Bye, guys. I'm going to kill myself.
We'll keep this episode at an album. Okay, so Hotline Miami. Let me pull up the Wikipedia. Soldier, can you slap me a brown there, good sir?
Brown slap.
Ew, that sounds really... Jason can't snap his fingers, fun fact.
You wouldn't call it a finger snap?
No, I called this a finger snap, you absolute chump. We got a classic Jason laugh. Okay, I'm sure everybody's...
It's a finger snap. It's just a weak
making
snap.
people's eyes water. Okay, Hotline Miami. is a top-down shooter video game by, Jonathan
Soderstrom.
Sure, and Dennis Whedon, collectively known as Dennaton Games. The game was published by Devolver Digital and released on the 23rd of October 2012 for Microsoft Windows.
AKA Windows.
Set in 1989 Miami, the plot consists of two protagonists, Jacket and Biker, that's their nicknames since they are unnamed, who have been receiving phone calls instructing them to commit massacres against the local Russian mafia.
Or have they?
The game blends top-down perspective with stealth, extreme violence, and surreal storytelling, along with a soundtrack and visuals. I'll just wait for you to finish crinkling that very crinkly paper, thank you. Along with a soundtrack and visuals influenced by 1980s culture. The game itself was influenced in part by Nicolas Winding Refn's 2011 neo-noir, there's that phrase that I used and you disagreed with slightly, crime film Drive, as well as the 2006 documentary Cocaine Cowboys, which we have not seen. At release, the game received very positive reviews from critics with praise regarding the narrative and themes, soundtrack, and gameplay, and has since become a cult video game. A sequel, Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number, was announced in 2013 and released on the 10th of March in 2015. So, for those of you who have seen Pulp Fiction, I kind of don't need to do as much explaining. The game's story is told part in flashbacks and is part told by a narrator who you later come to learn that you can't really trust. I think that's safe to say.
I wouldn't call him a narrator.
Well, from a point of view that you learn that you can't trust.
Yeah.
Then. Like it said, very surreal. Please, if you're listening to this and you've got like any sort of freedom whatsoever and you haven't and you aren't familiar with Hotline Miami, look up maybe just a let's play or even some screenshots, because it is it's one of my top 3 games of all time. I'll just come out and say it, and I think you and I have nothing but love for it.
I have a couple small, but it's incredible.
But the art for it is among the most striking digital/video game art I've ever seen.
And also, I would say, if you are interested in games at all, but not really a gamer, in some ways this is great for you. It was released on Windows, Mac, PlayStation 3, 4, Vita. It was released on Android even. Don't know why you'd want to play it on a phone, but you can. But it's also a very difficult game, so in some ways it wouldn't be a great point of entry. But I'm just saying it's readily accessible, like everywhere. So
yes, yeah. But then with that in mind, it is also brutally hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a great gamer, but I'm okay. And it's still really difficult for me. And it is a game where you will die hundreds of times in
especially
your first
time
playthrough.
through.
Yeah. So basically what Jason and I are going to be doing right now is not a conventional review of the game. What we're going to be doing is attempting to understand and explain our way through the story that takes place. I'll go to the plot section of the Wikipedia page.
I have Gamasutra Rame Ismail's dissection.
Which the what?
Did you read Rami Ismail's interpretation?
Oh, Rami, the guy, the camel dude.
The camel dude?
The camel mask called Rami? Is
Yeah,
it that
it's
guy?
named after him.
Yeah.
He's also a game developer, though. I think he made Luftwaffes.
Luftwaffes?
Mm.
I have not.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the game.
Sorry, I told you to go ahead and then
Holy
stop you, but I'm going
Moses.
to tell you this. So Rami Ismail, who will be reading some of his, he's the developer behind Vlambeer, who we know from Luftrausers and more recently Nuclear Throne.
Oh, cool.
So we'll be reading
I think we should do this more as like a constant back and forth.
Yeah.
Considering both of our notes are somewhat scattered on this, and I've got like pages and pages of notes because we both did a full playthrough of the game.
I have so many
to prepare.
notes.
I've read like full synopses of the plot and stuff like that.
I have almost 3 Microsoft Word 12-point font pages.
Oh dear. So I'm hoping that we can keep this entertaining and engaging for the
I'm
two
not
people.
like an hour long.
And if it's not, then just turn it off and tell us that it wasn't that great and to never do anything like
Comment.
this ever again.
Hooly dooly, I just lost my wellies.
No. Comment, you guys are absolute lizards, never podcast again. Okay. So the game starts off from the point of view of the protagonist nicknamed Jacket, because he is wearing a jacket very similar, and he looks very similar to Ryan Gosling's character in Drive. And in a couple different ways, the game does kind of mirror the story. In kind of the loose doomed romance kind of
I guess,
way, in the fact
soundtrack.
the soundtrack, in the fact that he drives a interesting car, which is a DeLorean. So it starts off with the Jacket protagonist being given a phone call from what we learn is called the 50 Blessings. Is it just organization?
50 blessings, yeah.
50 Blessings. Instructing him to check outside his door. He finds a box with a chicken mask and what?
This story does not start there.
Where does it start?
First,
then?
you go and meet the masked people before you get a phone call.
You're right.
So that kind of,
Okay, what? Okay, so the jacketed protagonist. Is that where it begins?
Yes.
After the tutorial, I assume.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, everybody.
He totally bungled the whole opening of the game.
Okay, whatever. You're visited throughout the game by 3 characters: a woman in a horse mask.
A woman?
Yeah, it's accepted that it's a woman. A woman in a horse mask, a man in a rooster mask, and another man in an owl mask.
Pretty sexist that they only have one woman and they have 2 men.
They seem to be kind of different paths that you can choose, or maybe different influencers. In any rate, they're all different characters in the game. And in that initial confrontation, or visitation as I called it in my notes, it's kind of established that the horse is a sympathetic, caring character who cares about Jacket and his predicament. That the rooster is a largely indifferent but not malicious presence who knows the future and knows the truth throughout, but only gives questions and never answers any of ours. And the owl is kind of an angry, I don't want to say hate-filled, but definitely has feelings of animosity towards the main character. So first it starts off with a meeting with those 3 characters, and then moves on to the jacketed protagonist waking up, finding the message on his answering machine from 50 Blessings, and then it's a cryptic message saying that he's got cookies delivered outside his door, and that the recipe for the cookies is in with the cookies. And he opens a box and finds a rooster mask, just like what we saw the rooster Richard wearing in the visitation scene previous. He puts on the rooster mask, and then there are instructions to go kill a bunch of people at a certain location. So this is kind of the basic setup of the game. He's receiving instructions to go kill various people, cryptic phone call messages to go deal with various people, and it'll be like, there's been a spill at this address, please bring your mop, and then you get the idea. He continues doing this sort of thing, and he's visited a couple different times by the horse, rooster, and owl, and three times before May 13th.
I believe so.
Okay.
Is it May 13th? I'm gonna check. Keep talking.
And it's each mission is given a date. Now, another interesting thing to note is that after the end of each mission, he goes out either to the bar for a drink, or he goes to the pizza parlor to get pizza, or he goes to the corner store to get a snack, or he goes lastly to the video rental store.
Did you say bar?
Yep. The video rental store to rent a VHS. And it's not important to remember those because they're all staffed by the same long-haired, bearded fellow who seems friendly with Jacket, seems to know him, and seems to have some sort of positive bent towards him, and lets him have various different things for free, and has his orders ready when he arrives, and all that sort of thing. Now, this sort of cycle continues for several missions. I think probably 5 or 6, or maybe 7.
Yeah.
Until you complete a level, and then you're told via phone message at the end of a level, you're in a room where you've killed a bunch of people and the phone rings, to go to this organization called Phone Home, because as they say, there is a prank caller, and you go to Phone Home. There are slaughtered bodies all over the place, and you go upstairs where there's a large man
This
in
is
a
chapter 7 after about 6 weeks of previous violence.
Yeah. How many missions is that though? 7? 6?
It's the 7th mission that you go there.
Okay, you just said that. Yep. And there's this large figure wearing a motorcycle helmet, and like a pink jacket there, and he's typing on their computer, and it's kind of implied he's killed all these people and he's hacking into their computers, whatnot. And so you confront him, and after an extended battle, you kind of like bash him to death with a golf club. And then after that, you receive another cryptic visitation from the horse, the rooster, and the owl, and they tell you that something's occurred. You go to the bar, and the bar is completely empty except for your friend, who says he has a gut feeling that something awful's taken place.
The owl's mad that you're back. The woman in the horse
Mask
says
is
you look
concerned,
sick. Yeah,
and the rooster offers you 3 questions, which I think I've written down, but I might
good
not.
because I only know one of them.
Oh, he says he has 3
predictions.
Someone you know is not who you think he is. Something will soon be taken away from you, and on July 21st, you will wake up in a bigger house. But to return to what I said, the bar is completely empty, and the bartender says he feels like something terrible has happened tonight. And the level starts swaying slightly as you walk from side to side. They kind of pitch and reel in this interesting way, in this kind of dizzying way. In an earlier mission, I forgot about this, I'm going back to it. In an earlier mission before this point, you rescue a character referred to affectionately as Hooker, because she is in fact a prostitute. You rescue her from the clutches of this mob boss, and she it's implied that she becomes your girlfriend after you care for her and
Maybe.
help her.
You always are sleeping in separate beds and stuff, though.
Although she leaves for a couple missions, comes back, and the beds are then pushed together.
That's true, yeah.
To form one big bed, as opposed to earlier when they were apart. And your apartment slowly becomes more clean, as I think
I noticed
she cleans it up for you. So let me try and get my head straight. So
We're really going on here and not getting...
Jason, that's okay.
It's okay. It's fine.
Just settle down.
It's fine.
Well, if it's fine, then why'd you mention it, Jason?
Because I'm a control freak and I hate myself.
Yeah. I know. So after this point, you do several more missions, I believe, and you go into the corner store where your friend is working with the beard and the long hair, but this time the biker who you killed with the golf club is laying with half his head missing and blood everywhere on the floor, and your friend informs you that nothing you see is actually real. And
Such a spine-tingling moment.
to demonstrate, the body of the biker disappears in this kind of blast of fake television static that comes over the screen. And then in the bathroom, you see this bald figure wearing a green jacket, kind of drumming his fingers on the sink. And then after that, it's revealed that this bald-headed, green-jacketed guy, who I'll call Richter, because of the mask he wears, kills your bearded friend. And then you arrive back at your back at your apartment, and you walk in and discover that your girlfriend, the hooker, is dead in the bathroom, and there's shell casings around her. And then you walk over towards your telephone, which is where the player's conditioned to walking to receive mission briefings. And the bald man in the green jacket sitting there with a rat mask on, he shoots you. Then you have another discussion with the 3 animals. Then they say there's a bed across the hallway, go there and rest. You walk across into the hallway and you see yourself laying in a hospital bed. Then the character's head symbolically explodes. You wake up in a hospital and it turns out you've been in a coma. You escape from the coma. You go to the head of the Russian gang, who I should mention, the Russian gang is who you've been perpetrating these acts of violence upon for the prior story. You go and you obliterate basically the head of the Russian mafia, and that's where Jacket's story ends. Now, here's where it gets really freaky, folks.
I just spent a little while getting this.
Oh, nice. Now, Jason's customized his laptop background to be Hotline Miami because he's listening so intently to what I'm saying.
I really am.
Now, they rewind the story to the day when you fight and defeat Helmet or Biker, the biker, and in a interesting twist when
That's not canon.
Yeah, it is.
No, after you leave the police station, you go and you have to get the case files, and you get Green Jacket out of the cell.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah,
that's an important part too.
Yeah, that is a good point. But you can either kill the bald guy or leave him.
Can you leave him?
Yeah.
I always kill him.
Same. I didn't know that you couldn't. Or that you could not. So yeah, who tells you about that? Who tells you about the police files?
You just go to the police files. He tells you about it, and then you kill him, and then you just go get it and leave.
And then you read some about yourself. I'm sorry, folks. It's a very convoluted story. I think
That's true.
As you're kind of picking up now.
And then it doesn't even rewind then.
No, I know it doesn't rewind then. Okay. It rewinds after you kill the head of the Russian mob.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
You kill the old man.
Yeah. So anyway, you do catch up later with the bald guy who shot you. And they actually talk about him while you're in the hospital bed and say that he's not talking.
Yeah.
And so you meet up with him and then you can kill him or not. Anyway, now it rewinds back to when you first faced off with Biker, only this time you're playing as Biker. Not only are you playing as Biker, but then Jacket, the previous protagonist, walks into the room, snatches up a golf club, and goes to fight you.
Hang on.
What?
There are 3 chapters as the Biker before.
Okay, you take over then.
I have the whole summary.
Go ahead.
So you take over as the Biker. This is May 13th.
I'm trying to do this from memory, dog.
So this is around 10 weeks. Oh, I have it all. I have the whole timeline here. Should have just asked. This is around 10 weeks before Jacket ends up in the hospital. So we
really,
go back.
To be honest, I completely messed that up on purpose so I could just eat.
Yeah. So we go back, and Biker Helmet, is that what he's called?
Biker.
So Biker is ringing out somebody in a pig mask, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, you see different masked figures. Like there's one scene outside of the convenience store where there's somebody in a mask who's getting gang beat by a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
You find them dead throughout the whole game.
Thank you for mentioning that.
One of your phone calls says that they sent someone over who didn't do a very good job, so you have to clean up. And then they're rigged up as like a human bomb, which I didn't make that connection until this playthrough. But it's very clear that you're not alone. There are quite a number of other people who are doing this. But it's not clear if they're imitators or kind of cohorts. And so the Biker rings out this kid in a pig mask, and the guy squeals, I thought that was a clever pun, and tells you the higher-ups at a Chinese restaurant. And then so Biker goes over to the Chinese restaurant, just like clears out the whole area, and gets to the guy in hiding who established all the like tech stuff, like the whole phone redirection. And he says the bosses are using this organization called Phone Home to cover up their tracks.
I really suck at this whole thing.
And so then at this point, there's a couple other calls that go on between May 16th and May 23rd, where I guess the biker's waiting to make his next move. So they call, for you to go to an arcade and you go there and wipe out everybody. And then the next time they make a call, but instead of going where they direct you, the biker goes to Phone Home, this dubious organization. I don't think they ever really say what it is. And is confronted by Jacket. But this time, playing as the biker, you kill Jacket, like, basically instantly. It's not even a fight at all. From here, the next day, you find... I guess actually at Phone Home, you find the address for where the bosses are hiding out, kind of thing.
The puppet masters, as it were, who have been sending out these cryptic phone calls, making people go kill members of the Russian mob. Yeah,
right. And you go there, and it's this dingy little janitor building thing. Excuse me. And you find there 2 janitors who you then realize you've seen scattered throughout the game, and they seem sort of incidental at the time. But it turns out that they're the masterminds who have been watching you.
I have a funny anecdote about them, by the way.
Go ahead.
I'm quite positive that
they're the 2 developers?
Look of the janitors is totally the 2 developers.
I see. And this is where things get even more convoluted, because you could have the true ending or the fake ending. The fake ending, nothing much happens, really, so I'm just going to go with the true ending. If you pick up specific little tiles throughout the game, there are these little collectible items. Each one is a letter, and you can arrange the letter into the password. By the way, I hated this. I felt like it was a cop-out. It had nothing to do with the story. I'm getting excited and talking too quickly. You can enter the password to their computer. You access their files. You see their whole game. Basically, it turns out that the janitors are nationalists, and what they're doing is basically a proof of concept for a plan to take over the world, essentially. So
they want to. I mean, the name of their organization is 50 Blessings. Yeah. They say they want to restore the United States of America to its greatness. They say that it's fallen, it's become tainted, and one of those signifiers or their testing grounds is the Russian mafia in Miami, and they're taking out the Russian mafia systematically as a proof of concept of their idea, but also as the first step to cleansing America.
But their plan, if this works, and it is working, was to implement this all over and have what seems to be some sort of ethnic cleansing almost of anybody who isn't an American. That's sort of what I got out of it. Or anybody who doesn't support American ideals. And then Biker kills them, the story ends. Total, apparently, like, dead-end ending. Nothing much seems to come of it. But I think there is much more than meets the eye here. So what is your interpretation of events? And I realize it's going to be scattered, and we've already basically destroyed this whole episode.
Yeah, so hopefully people have been able to follow and slightly remember. My definite opinion is that when Jacket goes to fight Biker, that Biker does defeat Jacket.
That's my theory as well.
He hurts him real bad, and then following that, all the events that take place from Jacket's perspective are coma dreams.
Yes.
Including he sees a lot of maimed or zombified
gangsters,
Russian gangsters, even a dog. And there is a mob boss in his apartment who's got his eye gouged out at one point. So I think that these are all coma dreams. I do think though that 50 Blessings then sent somebody to his apartment to tie up the loose end, which is his girlfriend. She was assassinated, and then passes away, dies.
I have some more notes, if I may. I'm going to skim through the story very quickly and pick up a couple things you may have missed. The very first time you encounter your friend at a convenience store, he says, and this is apparently the first thing that happens in the timeline as well, he says that you seem really down about losing your girlfriend. So my theory then is that the girl is kind of made up by you. It's like part of your psychoses. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of a recreation of a girlfriend that you had in the past, and eventually she dies, and I'm not convinced that she ever existed in the storyline. let's see. I also think it's very interesting as you see the progression. Yeah, the girl's at the bathroom sink. She's sleeping on the couch. She's sleeping at a separate bed. She's sleeping in your bed. Chapter 6, you have a clipping that talks about a possible vigilante movement that the police deny. So I wonder if some of the masked people are impersonators and not actually members of 50 Blessings. That is also when you first see the janitor in your apartment who's watching you in your apartment, and then again in a hotel where you go. Yes?
I think a lot of these questions, like what you were just saying about imitation killers and that sort of thing, are kind of addressed in Hotline Miami too.
Yes.
But it does somewhat frustrate me.
But that's set like
In,
a
like-
couple years later.
No, it's not. It's also set with flashbacks, and
That's true.
I'm gonna address some of that now. I'd like to be able to address the plotline of this game in isolation, though,
Yeah.
without possible revisionist add-ons from the developers, later when they thought, oh, here's a clever idea that we could do.
Let's see what time we're at, just
But-
so we have a sort of idea.
Well, we're going to be probably an hour 15. Hour 5. I think that one thing that's possible and interesting, I was reading some opinions online. Somebody thinks that the entire all of Jacket's experiences are made up, and they think that the bearded man, the bearded long hair, they call him Beard, the guy who works in all the stores and whatnot, was your friend during the war, which is
Korea.
which is addressed in Hotline Miami 2, and that he is dead before the game even starts, and that it's kind of a coping mechanism, the fact that he exists. And then after Jacket kills the old man in the wheelchair, who is kind of the kingpin of the Russian mob, you go out onto the balcony, you light a cigarette, and then take out a small slip of paper or whatever. He looks at it and then lets it go, and it floats off into the wind. And the proposed idea is that that's a picture of him and Beard from the war. And what he's been doing, the killings and that sort of thing, are a justification of, or something to kind of fill the void in his life that he's had. He watches buddies die, and he's very tortured by that. I don't know that I believe that entire sequence of events, but it does make quite a bit of sense.
Yeah.
My initial instinct is that for the purposes of the game existing in isolation for several years, which it did for 3 years, I think that the 50 Blessings group is real. I think that the acts that Jacket did leading up to his encounter with Biker are real. And then after that, I think they're all coma dreams. I think that then Biker essentially just resolves it. I don't think that it's as complicated of a narrative as what I initially thought. I do think that the horse, the rooster, and the owl are figments of his imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that he visits them in dreams, and they are part of his rationalizing his killings, and that they're part of his guilt that he's done, or for the things that he's done, rather. But I don't think that it's as complicated as I thought it was at first, and I don't think it's as complicated as a lot of people on GameFAQs and Reddit and all that sort of thing have made it out to be. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I'm very satisfied with that explanation.
So,
Do you differ?
yeah, I do to an extent. I sort of think that Jacket is real and 50 Blessings is real, and almost everything in between that is made up. So I kind of think that the horse is the part of you that wants to become like a crazy psychopath, and I think it's actually like the evil part of you sort of thing. I think the chicken is very possibly just a representation of you as it's normally neutral and swayed.
Or even neutral. Or even it's just a reference point
Yeah.
to bounce the other two
And I
off.
think the owl could also be viewed as the good side because I think it doesn't want... I think it's trying to get you to live a normal life. Like, it never wants you coming into these dreams and stuff. Yeah.
An interesting observation I made while playing is that the three animals, the horse, the owl, and the rooster, never talk to each other.
Yeah.
And indeed, they seem to be ignoring each other
Yeah.
in a lot of senses. And they're having completely different, disconnected conversations with you at the same time. So that's one of the things that led me to believe these aren't like... I think it's obvious they aren't three actual people in masks. But I do think that they are different paths that the characters struggle in between.
I also think your character model, I never noticed this before, in the first encounter, so the first time you kill someone, you throw up.
Yeah.
In the first dream sequence, your character is visibly shaking, like
Oh, really?
terrified. I had never
Oh.
noticed that before. I usually play it on the Vita. I played it on a bigger screen on a PS4 this time. And I noticed you are shaking, like you're terrified.
Interesting.
There's no two ways about that. So that, to me, discounts the theory of a war vet, because you wouldn't think, like, after you first kill, like, he throws up, I don't know, bring back old memories, whatever. Nobody knows. Who knows? Who cares? After that, I think 50 Blessings is real, and I think his murders are real, but I think that his friend is made up, and I think it could be as simple as an imaginary friend. It could be someone old who's died long ago. I think his girlfriend is made up, and I think that's like... I mean, maybe she used to exist, because at the beginning the guy says, sorry about your girlfriend, so I wonder if she's like a re-embodiment of your girlfriend kind of thing.
I'm not seeing the... I'm playing...
After
I just
that-
booted up the first mission on the Vita. I'm not seeing the character shake.
After that, I think it's possible, and this is a theory that isn't backed up by anything, but you do have, when you're in the hospital, you do have a bandage on your head. So I almost wonder if what happens is you go to phone home, clean house, and then when the biker shows up, I think he might be imagined, and I wonder if you finally reach your peak of insanity and just cap yourself in the head and try to kill yourself.
One of the things that was suggested was that he actually does kill Biker, and then this person here, actually, Shadow Spaz, it was suggested that every character in the game that's wearing a mask is actually you.
Yeah, I've
And
considered that
that
too.
when you go back to the apartment and Richter shoots you, it's actually you shooting yourself.
Yeah,
because they've killed your girlfriend.
I strongly suspect that he kills himself, and then from there on, yeah, shoots himself, doesn't kill himself, and then from there on out, everything is a dream, except
It's either that, or I entertain this briefly as well. He shoots himself in the head, kills himself, and is then in purgatory or hell for his actions. The one thing I dislike about the biker character being viewed as an unreliable narrator or as a fictional character in the setting of the story, of course, is that then the whole ending of the game, the whole conclusion, all that is just...
I don't really like the ending of the game. I think it's...
I mean, I don't mind it at all, but I think that it kind of has to be solid for the game's narrative to have any closure and any sense of solidity, which it does have some. Because the only way a narrative can be this convoluted and this confusing and this subjective is if there is, at its core, a central tenet or a fiber of truth.
And that's what I think 50 Blessings is.
Okay.
But then the question is, like, is Biker real? Like, because if 50 Blessings exist, who heads it up? Is it the janitors? Is that in your head or not? Like, I don't really have answers for that, and I don't think my theory is necessarily right. It's just a theory that I think is interesting, and I think it's very possible that all the masked characters are him, and that he does shoot himself.
I think that there are a couple ways that I would take exception with that theory, though, in so much as, like you said, you do find different characters throughout the game who are dead and have masks on them.
True.
And in which case, those can't really be you.
Yeah.
Because they're dead, unless... And then also it goes into the whole thing of how much credit do you want to, not credit, but yeah, I guess credit. How much credit are you going to give to the game developers? I doubt that myself as a creative individual would want to, or would think to jam so much symbolism and double meaning into a game or a piece of art. But I think it's in the subjectivity and the richness of a story where it becomes, dual meanings emerge themselves, and the story, the narrative take on, different shifting meanings.
Yeah. So is that it? We didn't talk that much about the game.
The game's epically
Fantastic.
amazing.
Very
and
difficult.
We weren't even gonna really be talking about the game itself.
That's true. If you like games, play it. If you don't like games, it's a really hard call. Everything about it would be good for non-gamers, except it is gruelingly difficult.
One thing that I would say is if you were, late 20s, early 30s, even above, and you played games as a kid, this would probably be a game you'd really love, because it has a retro aesthetic. It's got retro style graphics that are gorgeous, almost beyond compare. Did I just say gorgeous? They're gorgeous beyond comparison. It's a neon setting. The music is neon. Everything's 80s. It's vibrant. It's gorgeous. It is, if you know what pixel art is, the best pixel art I've ever seen in a game, bar none.
Next to Shovel Knight.
It's the detail is exquisite.
It's fab.
Anybody who has any passing interest in visual art should at least look up a bit of a let's play, or a walkthrough of it, and just watch like 5-10 minutes, just so that you can see what we're talking about, because it is beautiful. They're talking about the Hitchcock effect as well, in regards to the violence in the game, which is shocking.
Yeah,
I think the violence is shocking and brutal and up in your face, but it's all pixelated, right? It's these. It's not much more high fidelity than like Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
But the colors are vibrant, and they said that the Hitchcock effect is that when things are just lo-fi enough, your brain fills in all the missing gaps, and it becomes more shocking or more vibrant or more alive to you than it would have seemed had it been HD, photorealistic. Yes. And I completely buy that. Yep. And I completely think that that's one of the things that makes the game an all-time classic and a truly, truly timeless game. This game will never age.
No.
It will never, ever age. My one and only gripe with it, really, as I played through it, was that sometimes the guns, the bullets, can be like a little glitchy. Yeah. Like, I feel like I don't always hit the bad guys when I should. And that's literally one tiny gameplay nitpick in a game that I've probably sunk well over 100 hours into. Because it is one of those games, which we should say too, there are the separate missions. You can play through the missions separately and get better scores. And the gameplay itself is horrendously addicting.
Yeah.
Like, horrendously addicting. We were playing it with our friend Derek, who has only played like a little bit of the game. And I think it's one of those things where you die like that. Like you'll literally die 3, 4, 5 seconds into a level, and immediately you're like, I gotta try again. Gotta try again. You'll get halfway through a level and get killed. Gotta try again. It's a gaming masterpiece, and deserves.
Without the story, it would still be.
Yeah,
fabulous.
It doesn't need the story, but the fact that the story's there, it is the Quentin Tarantino video game. Yeah. Like. All over, and I mean that in the best possible sense. I really hope Quentin Tarantino's aware of this game and has, if not played it, learned a little bit about it. I think that's about it. That was more meandering and less focused than I wanted it to be. Yeah, but
it's okay.
But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the point.
And if they weren't into games, they'd probably just listen to Drive tuned out. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I don't really care.
We are trying to get as many views and as much money from this as we possibly can.
Yeah, if you could watch each of our videos 10 times, or set up like a server where all the computers are just constantly watching our content, we'd really appreciate that kind of farming.
Anyways, so what are we reviewing next week? Actually, I want to say one. We are reviewing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles, which is very interesting because I don't think either of us have ever listened to the whole album front to back.
And I don't have, I'm not gonna say famously, but I'm known amongst Beatles fans, because being in the music sphere as I am, I'm known amongst most musicians for hating the Beatles.
And I will say, I have hated the Beatles in the past, but recently I've started to wonder if I'm wrong.
Same.
So that might be interesting.
Same.
And I've thought recently, I've been like, maybe I've been wrong all along. And then alongside that, we will also be reviewing the cult classic Jaws.
Cult classic.
Which
that small art house film.
Which we have both already seen. We loved it before it was cool.
Yeah. Before we were born.
Yeah. Basically.
I'm really excited for the next episode. I think it's going to be one that you don't want to miss. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles and Jaws, probably the famous movie.
And I think this is the longest album name we've ever reviewed and the shortest movie name we've ever reviewed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no, Drive. I mean, I guess if you're going by letter count, then yeah, it's one word though. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is an extremely long album title, and I will not lie, a good album title.
True. So please, if you have any
comments, topic suggestions, any comments,
if there are things you dislike or like about the podcast,
please do let us know what you thought, if you're still listening at all,
or just in person, because we'll probably see you.
Yeah, if you have any strong thoughts, or even just any thoughts on this last segment that we did on Hotline Miami, I'd be extremely interested to hear them.
Yeah. I don't know if I liked it, but
because I feel like we didn't do as well as we might have, but then thinking back, I don't know really how we could have done it better.
True.
So, yeah. Anyway.
That's basically it. I'm going to look at getting the show on iTunes within the next couple weeks, so maybe even when this airs. We'll see though, so hopefully that complaint will be soon put to rest. And with that in mind, sploop.
Yes, a splooge.
Well, it wouldn't be easy.
None.